Okay, everyone. Second video in how to write your data investigation report. The section that you've been working on in class is your data analysis. You cannot write this until you've actually found your data, spread it out in front of you, and look to make those connections between, say, rainfall, incidence, and population density, between GDP per capita and the access to number of doctors. You are looking at these factors individually and together in groups, to determine what may be influencing the trend, the story of malaria in the community that you have identified. Now, your data analysis is going to have subsections, okay? So this is where you're organizing all that information you found. One suggestion, you may talk about malaria incidence, the infection rates, death rates by population, by climate. So in here, for example, if you had the map of infection or incidence rates, the population density map, and the climate map, you'd explain the pattern for each of those first using Malta, and then you'd look at the connections between each of them. Okay, then you'd repeat this for something like socioeconomic challenges. GDP per capita. You might find GDP per region. Don't stress if you can't. Health spending. Now, we've found that data. It might be very low. It might be increasing. What's the story that we're finding about the spending on each of these? How many doctors or access to medical services? And you might have current management strategies. For example, if there is a program to supply the insecticide-treated nets, okay, or how much is being spent on those programs. Now, once you have that information, you've put it together, do it in dot point first. Literally, print out all your data, your transformations, your maps and graphs, put it out in front of you like a jigsaw, so you can scribble all over it and find the connections. Now, have a look at this example paragraph here. This one is looking at population structure overall. Okay, they've given a little blurb introducing figure 3.1, which was actually up here on that example. And what they've done is go straight into the analysis. They've said what the statistics show. Okay? And for that, they've compared it to a national average. Well, over here, you might compare it to the area of Africa. Up to you. Again, it's giving us information on a particular statistic. And then, this is the good analysis bit, this group will increase the overall aging construct of the population. So if you had, for example, health spending, and you could see that it was growing slowly over time by, you might work out it's grown by 3% per year, you might make a conclusion that eventually this would help the country to address malaria. Or you could say that even though it's growing, it's still so tiny, it's not really going to make a difference. It's this last sentence here that shows how you've put the information together that is really important. Okay. Have a read over this one because it goes through and does that each time. This has even gone a little bit further and said, oh, we'll have more old people, we're going to need more accommodation for aged care homes. If we have here that maybe the population is increasing, more people are moving to cities which are in rainy areas, maybe that means we're going to have more infection rates. Okay, It depends on what data you have found and what story it is telling. Now, this is going to be the biggest part of your assignment. When you have a look at the exemplar, you'll see it's the one with, here we have the first graph, which is probably the one that they did the initial trend. So you must put that initial graph in, maybe as your starting point under malaria incidence, talking about death rates. And they've done 3.1 population structure. Yours could be 3.1 malaria incidence. Okay. Even under there, you can break it down. So when they've talked about population, they've got a heading and a subheading, and then they're talking about bits and pieces. So you could go data analysis, 3.1 malaria incidence, death rate by age, doopy-doopy-doo. You could then talk about spatial distribution of malaria, and that would bring in, say, your population density, climate, and incidence rates. Depending on what data you have and how you're presenting it is how you can do your subheadings. There is no right or wrong answer. It just needs to be logical. And you need to make sure that you're using this format. You need to have everything listed as a figure, and you need to refer to those figures in your analysis and explanation. All right, video number 3 coming up.